It was love at first sight when she walked through that door. The most beautiful girl I'd ever seen before. Sea green eyes and long blonde hair, cool smooth smile and didn't have a care. I don't know why, but she walked my way. I was scared to death, but I was ready to play. Love at first sight sets the spirit free. I felt the dark clouds part, I heard the angels sing. My heart caught fire and my soul can fly. That's when I knew I had to make her mine. Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the big show. My name is Mickey, and this is Mickey in the Middle, the quintessential show for Middle Americans, where all Middle Americans are welcome. It doesn't matter where you've been, doesn't matter where you've been, doesn't matter where you've been, doesn't matter where you're going, just matters that you're here right now. What we do on this show is we talk about Middle Americans and what's important to them. And today we're talking about something that's very, very, very important. So we're going to be talking about Iran, where they've been, where we are now, and what's going to be held in the future. We're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's plenty of good, there's plenty of bad, and there's lots and lots of ugly, especially when it comes to the future. Now I'm going to get to all that, but we're going to start the show the way that we always start the show is we're going to do the nod to the Constitution of the United States of America, because this is the greatest document. And I would like to share something with you at this juncture. I want to share something with you. The preamble to the Constitution of the United States of America. And I want you to think of the country of Iran right now. I want you to think about what I'm about to read to you is critically important to the conversation that we're about to have. And I want to read some things to you specifically about our country. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. The most important part of that is we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. Liberty is freedom. You have to ask yourself, what other country in the world is trying to secure freedom for the people in the country? Because Iran sure as hell's not. Iran is not. They are a theocratic monarchy slash dictatorship slash whatever bad words you can come up with to describe a government and how they oppress their people. It is whatever the government decides. If the government decides to kill 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people, they just go and do it. They did it a couple months ago. Remember when the Iranian people were having protests in order to protest the government and say that we want to change some of the laws in our country? 91 million people in that country, hundreds upon thousands, if not millions of them protesting, and they went out and they started shooting people in the streets. And the ones that they could catch, they caught and they beheaded them in the street. And other people they caught and they threw them in prison. That does not sound like a government that is trying to secure liberty for their people. The First Amendment of the Constitution Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Do you think that there's freedom of religion in Iran? I just have to ask you that question. Do you think there's freedom of religion in Iran? Do you think that they're opening up any Catholic churches? Do you think that non-denominational Christian faiths have the ability to go to Iran and preach? Even if there were people that weren't coming from outside, what about the people inside that somehow miraculously discovered a Bible and wanted to go and start a church in Iran? Do you think the government would allow that? They were prohibiting Congress will make no law respecting prohibiting the free exercise of speech, abridging the freedom of speech or the press, the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Do you think that that's where Iran is? That's the difference. That's the difference. We believe in freedom. They don't. You know what a hijab is? It's a head covering. A burqa is a body covering. The Quran says that you should be humble in everything that you do. But what they've done is they've used that as an excuse to oppress all women. This is what happened in 1979 when a theocratic government that was crazy, religious, decided that they were going to go and kick the Shah of Iran out. Now, the Shah of Iran was not a good dude. He had an oppressive government, but they threw him out. And then they instituted a sect of Shia Muslim religion on the people, all 91 million people. Whatever they say goes. Their interpretation of the Quran. Now, their interpretation of the Quran and everything that's happened since the Quran came out is different than the Sunni Muslims. You got to remember, there are two different sects of the Islamic faith. And I'm not professing to know a lot about either one of them, but I know that one says, hey, look here, we view the Islamic religion differently than those crazy people over there. So if you look at Saudi Arabia and you look at Iran, one is Saudi Arabia is more Sunni and Iran is Shia. Why is this important? Because the people that have a problem in the Middle East seem to all be Shia. But the Sunnis don't have a problem. They believe that the interpretations of the Quran are interpreted different. And I'm not going to say one way or the other. All I'm going to say is that all of the Sunni population seem to be getting along with every other religion right now at this time. Look at what the bombing is in the Middle East. Bahrain, the UAE, Qatar, let's see, all of the countries that are in the Middle East. I can't remember. Egypt is in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. All of the countries that are in the Middle East right now, who's bombing who? Who's threatening who? Who wants to end the world in order to make sure that the prophecies come true? Who says that every drop of Jewish blood needs to be extinguished from the earth before the revelations happen? That's what happened in 1979. So we start off with the Constitution of the United States of America, then we go to the current population, which is 8,280,730,000 of your closest friends. And then we have the debt that says that, hey, man, we are all in a mountain of debt. Next thing I want to show you is the buff has entered the game. If you do not know what a buff is a B-52 that can carry 80,000 pounds worth of bombs. And it can fly around the world if it wanted to. Remember how the B-1 takes off from Missouri, flies all the way over to the Middle East, bombs them a few months ago with bunker-busting bombs to completely destroy their nuclear capabilities that didn't seem to be completely nuke. They didn't nuke the nukes, right? But it wasn't obliterated. It did not end as the Trump administration declared their nuclear programs and their nuclear ambitions are over, which is going to be relevant to the second half of this show. It's going to be very, very relevant to the second half of this show. And I need you to stay tuned for that because the B-52 has now entered the game. And the B-52 is for carpet bombing and doing amazing things with weapons that because they can carry so much weight. They've been around since the 1950s. That makes them all 70 years old. They keep redoing the wings. They do amazing things. I was in an exercise in Nevada one time, and we were at 500 feet, and a B-52 in the same exercise flew under us, and we were at 500 feet in the open desert. Now, I don't know whether they saw us, but when they flew underneath us, they were going a hell of a lot faster than us, a hell of a lot lower than us, and they were just cooking. And we were like, whoa, what the hell just happened? Buff. So a Buff is a bad airplane. 80,000 pounds worth of munitions can fly from here to the end of the earth. And they have now entered the game. Why is that important? Because in 1979, when the theocratic government of Iran took over, they started oppressing the entire region. They said that they were going to wipe Israel off the earth. They've been oppressing their people, and they have been a threat to their neighbors ever since. I'm not going to get into all of that. What I'm going to get into is the here and the now. Not this past weekend, but about 10, 15 days ago, 10, 12 days ago, we got into a war with Iran that we started. The reason why we started it is because it was claimed that although we bombed the shit out of their nuclear program, they somehow were going to revive it, and they had enough nuclear material in order to make 11 nuclear missiles. 11. That's a big number. How much uranium, processed uranium, do they have to have in order to do that? Turns out it's less than 1,000 pounds. It's like 500 pounds. And if you take that uranium and you process it and you make it weapons grade, then you can take that, you can put it in a bomb, it's well known by major weaponized countries how to make a nuclear bomb now. I think you can even actually find it on the internet if you look. But if you have a nuclear bomb capable and a missile capable of flying thousands of miles, that makes it a huge threat to the entire region. Some people say that the only reason why Iran wanted a bomb is because when you have the bomb, you're untouchable as a country. They evidence North Korea as that. North Korea apparently has nuclear capabilities. They have the capability of firing rockets, putting a nuke on the end of a rocket, firing it, and being able to hit all of the countries around North Korea, which includes South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, China, Japan. That makes them a threat to their neighbors, and nobody wants to start a war with them because a crazy person could push a button and annihilate that part of the world. So that means that we cannot deal with North Korea. We can't risk it, which puts that entire region forever and ever and ever and ever and ever into a dangerous state because they got a crazy person and they have a nuke. You can't have a crazy person and a nuke together because it totally changes the landscape of everything around that country. They got to be isolated and they got to be cajoled to the point where they will not use their nuclear weapons if they get crazy one night. That's the excuse for going into Iran. We can't let a crazy person and a nuclear button be associated with each other. That's critical. That's critical. Here's the thing. This has happened for almost 50 years. Should have been done a long time ago. Everybody's going, Hey, they're a threat. They're a threat. They're a threat. They're a threat. And they haven't done anything to them. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today, to my friend who I was just talking to, and I made the analogy of, if your neighbor beats your children, what do you do to your neighbor? If your neighbor is beating your children every time your neighbor goes out, your neighbor goes and gets him and he beats them, do you bring that neighbor pie? Do you bring the neighbor cookies? Do you give your neighbor money to not beat your kids? And if you do give them pie or dinner or money, and they still continually beat their kids and say that they're going to shoot your dog and they're going to kill your kids one day, what are you supposed to do? You go, hey, look here, man. Here's a pie. Can't we be friends? No, because they're freaking crazy. Well, that's where Iran was. They've been crazy for 47 years. Crazy, crazy. They oppress and kill their own people. They threaten their neighbors. They support terrorism and they fund terrorism around the globe. It's not just local, although it's pretty local. It's not necessarily all local. What are you supposed to do? Well, the first thing you can do is you can cut the head off the snake. You can go over there and go, look, we're not going to put up with this shit anymore. As a matter of fact, we're going to punch you in the face as hard as you can. You want to know why? Because that's what you do with a bully. Should have been done a long time ago. Water over the bridge, water under the dam. It doesn't matter what it is. By the way, I did that on purpose. Water under the bridge, water over the dam. We're in this thing now. We're in it. I don't care what anybody says, whether we should, whether we shouldn't. It doesn't matter whether we are in it. I'm going to tell you right now that the messaging out of the White House and the Department of War does not matter. I try to tell people this all of the time. If a patient walks into an emergency room and they have him fill out a form of where you were born and where are all your operations and where are all of your scars, and tell me all your mom's and your dad's diseases, and tell me what your brothers and your sisters have, and tell me what medication you're on, and tell me all of this background stuff, it is totally not applicable to the condition that you have if you broke your finger. I've got a broken finger. Does the fact that I had my gallbladder removed 20 years ago matter to that? No. Does the fact that I broke my ankle when I was in high school have anything? No. What is the current condition that we're dealing with? And if a doctor comes in and says, hey, this is going to take about 6 weeks to heal, and another doctor walks in and says, I think it's going to take 6 months. Does it matter whether they say 6 weeks or 6 months? The only thing that matters is when you get healed, you get healed. So if Donald Trump says, and I quote, what did Donald Trump say? Donald Trump said, the war will bring our enemy. Oh, Hegseth said, this war will bring our enemies to their knees. And Trump said, this is very complete. Hegseth said, we're only getting started. Trump said, we're pretty well complete. Here's the deal. I watch CNN. When stuff like this happens, I turn to CNN because I believe that CNN has better on-the-ground reporting than all of the other news networks. They're an international organization. Their reporters are in the field. I don't want to hear what the talking heads inside of their studio says that are safe and not next to the war, not threatening to have bombs, drones, or missiles dropped on them. I don't care what the talking heads say, but I do care what the reporters say, because the reporters are going to give you the real shit. So when the reporter says, I'm in Tel Aviv, or I'm in Beirut, or I'm in Iran, you can believe that they're going to tell you exactly what's happening on at that moment. It's like the patient in the hospital. The patient in the hospital only wants the finger broken or only wants the finger fixed. All of the other stuff that everybody says is not relevant to the conversation. Here's what you need to know now. We've been bombing the crap out of them. We've bombed over 5,000 targets. B-52s have now entered the fray. They're dropping 80,000 pounds of munitions on targets inside of Iran. When you look at a map, here's what you need to know about the map. Iran on a map, on a picture on your screen is this big. And when they put little bomb markers on that screen, it covers all of Iran. That is a false sense of we're bombing everything in Iran. It's impossible to bomb everything in Iran without a nuclear device. Do you want to know why? Because the effective range of anything that we're dropping in Iran is less than a half a mile. So when we drop a bomb or we drop a missile, we drop a dedicated weight of a missile with a dedicated explosive force, with a designated penetrating or non-penetrating head, or above ground or below ground burst or penetrating mechanism that has a projected kill radius. I want you to go outside and I want you to find a really, really big field, something like 10 acres. If you drop one of our bombs in the middle of that 10 acres, it's going to take out the 10 acres. Do you know how big 10 acres is in Texas? 10 acres to the size of Texas is minuscule. So if we hit 5,000, 10 acre lots, it's minuscule. I'm telling this. Although we are having and we are bringing them to their knees, I'm telling you right now, this is the good. The good is we've killed the crazy person that was at the top of the food chain with 50 of his friends. We killed the next 100 and their friends. But you know what the problem is with Iran? Is they've had 2 generations of these crazy people being in charge. And it's not just in Tehran. It's not just in Tehran. It is all over the country. In every single mosque, every single Ayatollah that is over there believes in the same philosophy that comes out from the top. Because in the religion, the Ayatollahs are the law. They're the decision makers. They are the educated inside of the population, and they make all of the rules. I want you to think what happens for 47 years if you bring children up inside of a radical conversation. What happens to those kids in 10 years, in 15 years, in 30 years, in 40 years, in 47 years? That's what's been building inside of the mosques that are in Iran. Do you know who's in charge of the police forces and in charge of the military? Only the people that were raised in the mosques approve all the police departments, all of the people in the police, all of the people in emergency services, all of the people that are loyal to that function. So you can cut the head off the snake. And I'm not saying that there's going to be 10 other heads of snakes. What I'm saying is that this is generational, built into their system, where it believes that they're oppressing people and that the government should be theocratic. See the problem now? It's size and scope. The good news, more good news, is that there are factions inside of Iran that have demonstrated that they are willing to change the makeup of their country. But you have to remember the size and the scope of this. We're trying to miss civilian targets. When you go blow up all of their toys, you did not kill the people. The only thing that makes a country give up is, number one, if all of the people are dead, or number two, the outcry of the people is loud enough to overthrow that. But let's say that the government is split 50-50. 50% of the people want reform in Iran. 50% of the people go, no, I like it the way that was because I'm a man and I had freedom. I'm a man and I had control of my household. I'm a man, I had status. I'm a man, I'm part of the army, I'm part of the police. I have access to guns. Or the other 50% of the population, which says, I'm a woman, I'm going to support my man. I'm a woman, I know my place in the religion. I know my place because of the religion, and I know what's going to happen in the afterlife. Who's that leave? That leaves 25% of the population that has no guns to overthrow the people that have the guns and have had authority for 47 years. That's the bad. But when you cut the head off, you can hope that the next person is not as bad. And that's the truth. Somebody goes, well, you could end up with somebody worse. No, you couldn't. You can't end up with somebody worse. You just can't. You cannot end up with anybody that's worse. The reason that dude was in charge is because he was the worst. He had the better propaganda. He could kill more people. He ruled with an iron fist. He was in charge. He loved that shit. Simple fact of the matter is, let me turn on chat right here. Simple fact of the matter is that without, hey, Steve, hi, Carolyn, hi, Logan. Simple fact of the matter is that when you look at the country of Iran and the bombing that we have done, there is absolutely no way that we can guarantee that the future is going to change for Iran unless somebody in Iran is willing to have conversations outside of Iran. So what is good? What's good is it should have been done a long time ago, and somebody finally had the stones to do it. Number two, not a lot of our troops have been killed. If you get a chance, say a prayer for those who have been killed or wounded in action and the people that have suffered immeasurably because of this, because they're not only Americans, although we want to pray specifically for the Americans first, there are people in other countries that have been heavily affected by this. We want to pray for the people that were in the school that were accidentally hit by the missile or the whatever munition hit them, a Tomahawk missile, I think it was. We want to pray for the civilian population of Iran. We got a lot of praying to do. Got a lot of praying to do. But the good is that action has been taken. They are much less of a threat than they have been in the last 47 years. And hopefully this can start some constructive conversations, because if we do what we're supposed to do, we're supposed to go, all right, how can we help you rebuild? How can we help you rebuild? How can we help? All right, so we're going to need some freedom for people. You're going to have to give the people some freedom. Somebody's going to have the leadership role in that. The bad is the population is so entrenched. It's so entrenched that this is not, you kept the head off of it and all the people go, yay, we're free. Everybody that's not in Iran and New York and Chicago and LA and Atlanta and New Orleans and all these places that were celebrating that the Ayatollah was killed, they have a right to celebrate because that was the worst bastard of them all. But the simple fact of the matter is it's not going to be easy. But now we can have a conversation. The bad is that entrenched version. The ugly, and this is, I cannot emphasize this enough. The ugly is that this is not going to be over anytime soon. The bombing may stop from the United States of America. If it's tomorrow, if it's 6 weeks, if it's 6 months, it doesn't matter. All that the people on all those talking heads that I was talking about, they're making this about that. They're saying, well, he said it was going to be short. He said it was going to be long. He said we're bombing the shit out of him. He said we're complete. He said we're not complete. He says we're just getting started. He bombed their Navy. Remember when he said their Navy was at the bottom of the sea? Well, turns out that they had another 100 ships that were capable of laying mines, and we've just blown up like 40 more of them. So how can somebody say that it's over if we're still blowing up ships that are dropping mines in the Straits of Hormuz? So don't pay attention to any of that. Because the ugly part of this is it's not going to be over. People want revenge. People want revenge for what they've done. Right now, we're killing thousands of people in Iraq or Iran. Why? Because they're standing next to places that we're going to blow up. That means that the sons and the daughters of the Iranian people are being blown up. It's not just the cutting the head off the snake. Other people are dying as well. Numbers estimate anywhere from 5 to 10,000 people in the Iranian Guard. The ugly part is that their religion and their culture is multi-generationally built in because nobody has done anything for the last 47 years. Do you really think that we can get out of a multi-generational situation like that, that is a theocratic government that has oppressed women and taken away freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of religion? And do you really think that we can do anything about it in a flash? We can't. My estimation about when the people of Iran will have freedom is going to be on the timeline of like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was a backwards ass country for many, many, many years, and they still would be if they had not discovered oil when they discovered oil, like in the 1940s and 50s and 60s. Even when they started getting rich and they started becoming a world player, they still had a theocratic government, and they still have the House of Saud, which is one family runs Saudi Arabia. Now, they have had leaps and bounds of success because they raised their children in a world environment where those children can be educated in Britain and in the United States. They got internet for their people. They tried to make things better for their people because they realized that if they didn't make things better for the people of Saudi Arabia, then those people would have end up eventually revolting against them and killing them all and taking away their power. That's the access that we need to have in Iran. We need the people of Iran to have access to the outside world like Saudi Arabia did, so that the people of Iran can go back to Iran and go, wow, you should see what they're doing in Saudi Arabia and UAE, in Bahrain, and in these other modern Middle Eastern countries. What's happening in Europe? What's happening in Britain? What's happening in France? What's happening in the United States of America? What's happening all over the world is the populations are maturing and educating themselves that freedom is better than oppression. So then they can go back to their country and they can intellectually present arguments that change the government and philosophy of the people in Iran. But until the people get educated and they see the rest of the world, they can't go back and save their country. That's the reality of what's going on in Iran right now and what's going to go on in Iran in the future. My call is, even with the advent of AI and the proliferation of Wi-Fi and modern technology going into Iran at the most rapid pace, the fastest we can hope for theological and governmental change in Iran is 20 years. I will repeat that. With the advent of AI and the advent of access to outside facilities, the fastest that Iran can change is 20 years, because that's generational change. Last night when I was preparing this, I was saying it's going to be 40 years, but then I realized that with AI's help, with computers' help, and with access to the world, the people of Iran Iran can really change the picture inside of their country rapidly. But you know who needs to have access to that information? The mullahs, right? The ayatollahs, the mullahs, the people that are in the church, the people that are in the police force, the moms, the dads, the normal people that are just out there trying to live their best life. Some people in Iran remember what it was like before the Ayatollah took over. I don't know how much this has been said, but I'll tell you, I went to Iran for the BAM earthquake, 2004, 2005. Can't remember when it was. Our airplane went in there for relief of an earthquake in BAM, BAM. There were people that were still there that would speak English. They were older people. They were about my age, but they could still speak English. But they told me that English and speaking in American was banned in the country because they wanted to wipe that out. And if you were caught speaking English, if you were not a diplomat or in the relief services, they would cut out your tongue. And the person that was telling me this, there was a bunch of men. There were a bunch of men there that were telling me this. Only a couple of them could still speak English, but they remember the days when they could speak English and speak freely, and they remember the international community. So those people are still in Iran, and they still understand what was going on in the rest of the world and how modernization could help Iran. Because you know how they were unloading airplanes when I was there? By hand. They could not use forklifts. They did not have any K-loaders. They did not have any offloading equipment. They didn't have a single forklift that could take pallets off of an airplane and take them to relief. So they lined up 100 Iranian soldiers and they handed a bag of rice down the line. Then they would get another bag of rice and they would hand that down the line. And that's what those people did every single day for like a month straight. When an airplane landed, they all lined up, they downloaded the airplane. That's how far behind they were. This is in the early 2000s. But some of them remembered. And now if we can get internet and we can get the people out to understand that there's more to what they have been told the world is, the two generations that have missed out on what the modern world now looks like, if we can get them the information, let them have the power, let them go back and make the intellectual conversations, have the intellectual conversations inside of their government, pray that they don't get killed by these radical lunatics that are in charge over there. That is the only hope that they have. That right there is simply the ugly part of this that nobody's talking about. It's not going to be over in a month. It's not going to be over for the people of Iran in a year. I pray for Iran, and I hope that you pray for Iran too. I hope you learned a little bit something about here, and thank you very much for listening to my rant. My name is Mickey. This has been Mickey in the Middle, the quintessential show for Middle Americans. We talk about the things that are relevant to Middle Americans. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, or whatever you got to do in order to do that. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for staying tuned in while I rant about this stuff. Steve Hayes says it's going to take generations to make them change in Iran, just as it's taken them this long to get where they are today. Steve Hayes, you are spot on. With that, good night, everybody. Take care. Love you.